Hey everyone, and welcome to Screams After Midnight. I am Peter, and joining me as always is Tim. Tim? Tim? Tim?
Oh, wait.
Tim.
Oh.
Wait, Tim? I'm doing a bit.
It's a good bit. I liked it.
Thank you.
Good job.
Thank you, Tim. Yeah, because we're going to be talking about a new film that just came out on Friday. Netflix released In the Tall Grass, which is based on a Stephen King and Joe Hill story. Was it a novel or a novella, or was it?
It's a Kindle single.
Yeah, we've joked about this in the past about how it's like a dating app. Yeah, I'm a Kindle single. Find Kindle singles near you. Okay.
I'm not sure what the actual term is, because I know it's not a full length novel. So I don't know if you'd say short story, or sometimes people like to say novellas, but I don't know how long something needs to be a novella. And I did read this, but it was on my Kindle, so I don't know how many pages it was. It's pretty short though. It's like you can get through it in probably less than an hour.
Interesting. So you're telling me it was probably written on toilet paper? He was in the bathroom and he thought,
sure.
I don't know why they're both in the bathroom together, because they co-wrote it, but that's...
Well, they're family, so...
So yeah, we'll start spoiler free as we always do, of course. And it's the October thought. I haven't even mentioned it yet. It's October. It's the month of Halloween. We're doing episodes every single goddamn day, or at least as close as possible. Although me and Tim will be scheduling things after we record, and we'll see how feasible that is. But we'll be talking about this movie film. I'll just remind you before we start. This movie film. I'll remind you before we start, because we're getting quite close now to a couple of things. One is the deadline for a user submitted vote, where you can vote for your top horror movies of all time. You do that by sending in your top 25 or top 50, whatever amount you want to do, of your horror films of all time, ranked, number 1 through 50 or 25. And the idea is that the movie at number 1 gets the most points, number 2 gets less, and so on and so on. And there'll be a results show, and it'll be a top 50 horror movies list that is basically assembled out of what you guys have voted for, and we'll be doing the results of that towards the end of the month. The deadline for that is the 20th of October. That is October 20th. So if you can write your lists up, you can send them to mftvquestions@gmail.com. So if you do that, and do that by the end of October 20th, then we'll be giving you results, and you can be a part of that and get your movies higher up in the list. So do that.
Yeah, I'll be really interested if there's any movies on the list that neither one of us have seen.
That would be interesting. What's funny is that I did this for movies in general. In fact, me and Tara just recorded the first half of the results of that in the last few days.
Movies in general or sci-fi movies?
No, movies in general, because it wasn't like an ace thing. It was something because I did my own top 100, and I said, hey, this would be fun, and I just roped in Tara to be on the show for the reactions, so there'd be someone else, going, ooh, that's too high, that's too low, and it's been interesting so far. The first half of it was interesting, although I don't think there was any I hadn't seen. I think there was maybe one or two she hadn't seen, but it was only one or two. But I had seen them all, I think, so far. But it would be curious to see if there's any that neither you or me have seen. Yeah.
Yep.
So that's October 20th is the deadline for that, and you can send them to mftvquestions@gmail.com. And then the other date that's important is the very day after that, and that is October the 21st. Because
the very day.
Because on October 21st, that's the Monday, that night, we are going to be doing a special Streams After Midnight. That is a live stream with both of us. We will be streaming, obviously just chatting to people in chat, and then we'll be doing a live viewing of the movie Pieces, which obviously you'll have to get your movie yourself, so make sure you've got a copy. I think it's on Shudder. I think someone even said they can find it on YouTube. You can go look for it. But we're all going to watch it in sync and make jokes, have fun, and do whatever. After some, an hour or two of Q&A or whatever. But so it's going to be a fun night. It'll be kind of whatever. We've cleared our schedules, we've cleared our calendars, and that's going to be what we do. So that's October 21st. So make sure you join us on YouTube for that. So if you listen to the audio feeds for this, the YouTube, if you've never beat the YouTube channel, it's just Mail Fuzz TV on YouTube. Easy to find. But yeah, so we're going to be doing that on October the 21st. So list to be sent in by October 20th, live stream on October 21st.
And then 10 days after that, October 31st is Halloween. So, people might want to just remember that,
The 21 plus 10 is 31. Yeah, people, yeah. I'm sure.
Well, I'm saying you're talking about important dates, so people probably want to mark down 31st, Halloween this year. So
just this year. Oh dear. And it is just worth mentioning one final thing. That live stream that we're doing, that is actually something that if we hit a goal on Patreon, we'll do every month. But we're doing a special one-off for Halloween on October the 21st to give everyone a taste of what that would be. So there we go. That's all the house cleaning.
You just see all the Patreon money start to subtract after it as people realize what they're getting.
Yes, that's exactly what's going to happen. We'll abort the stream half an hour in. I'll see where the way it's going. You know what, Tim? I'm just going to boot you from the stream. This was a bad idea. This was terrible. All right, so finally we could start talking about the movie. We can start talking about In the Tall Grass. The plot of which is basically that I thought there were a couple at first. It wasn't until after that they mentioned at one point they were brother and sister. But it's a man, a woman, and the woman's pregnant, and they're in the car traveling to a new town or something like that. It was a fair assumption to make. But so they pull over because they pull over for pregnancy reasons. She's feeling sick, but
pregnancy reasons.
But they hear a voice coming from the long grass, which just happens to be the side of the road, and it's actually kind of funny to me how random the location this is. There's no it's just between places. There's no I don't even think they mention what state they're in at any point. Maybe they do. It's probably Maine. It's always Maine.
Well, I think they mentioned that they're going to San Diego, but then in the end, I think they say they're coming from Kansas. So
yeah, and they said
somewhere in between there.
Yeah, they said they're 2 days into the trip. It's been 2 days since they left. So someone could probably figure out roughly where they are, given that route and given how much time it's been. But it's a giant, long grass field, and they hear this kid shouting for help, and they ultimately go inside, and the cookie shenanigans start to unfold, and they can't get out. No matter what they do, no matter how they turn, it starts playing tricks on them where they'll hear each other from different directions, and then they'll instantly switch as if they're being moved around like pieces of a puzzle. So that I'll just say that we'll save everything else for spoilers, I think. But that is the general idea: is people are trapped in the long grass, and of course there's maybe something sinister going on because it's not just a movie about being lost. But I mean that's a big part of it. So, Tim, did you enjoy In the Tall Grass?
So I have been thinking about it for quite a while. I've had a whole day to ruminate on this film. Because I think after I first watched it, I was pretty excited about it. I was like, yeah, that's pretty good. I like that. And then the more I think about it, I definitely don't hate it. I still liked it, but I don't know. I think I'm starting to see the flaws a bit more. It's definitely not perfect, but there was, parts of it that I did enjoy. So it's kind of tough. It feels like a little bit like a missed opportunity because one of those ones where I can see where a lot of this stuff I think would have been good, but there's just some things here, some things there. They could have maybe getting rid of this, shorten it up, maybe explain some certain things, make things a little clearer, and you could have had a nice little gem on your hands. Instead, you got this, which I think is a fine movie, but it's definitely not as good as I was hoping it to be.
It kind of sucked, let's be honest, Tim.
I wouldn't go that far, but I probably also wouldn't challenge someone that says that.
Good, because I'm about to say it. I did say it, in fact. It's not the worst thing in the world, don't get me wrong, sure. But it's I feel like it... Interesting enough idea early on, right? The idea of getting out of the grass and then you can't get back out, and it feels like the directions are playing tricks on you and whatever. And I called a big element of it almost immediately. Now, admittedly, the element I called is kind of introduced 30 or 40 minutes into it. It's not like it's a late movie twist, so it's not that big a deal. But so I felt like a couple of the actors weren't amazing. Patrick Wilson's in there, but some of the others I wasn't as keen on, and I did feel like once it really started to go kind of more into its plot and get a bit more nuts in the back half, there was a lot of elements that started to feel really kind of undercooked to me. Like it felt like, again, I can't really reveal any of this because it's all full on spoilers, but like the stuff it was playing with, once it get past the sort of, because the first like 20-30 minutes is very much like almost like one big prologue to kind of set up kind of the ideas. And it feels like it's kind of almost like we're going to switch to new characters, but then it kind of does like that kind of switcheroo and a bit of a trick here or there, and it kind of plays with what it's doing, and those ideas are fine. I think honestly one of the big problems I have with it is that ultimately a movie that's set 95% of it in long grass is that it's not that interesting to look at. After a while, it just feels like everything looks the same, and
yeah, well, I actually did like a lot of like the scenes of the grass during the day. Like there was some like overhead shots
Sure.
where like, you know, you'd have kind of like the breeze come in and it was very quiet and calm. I like that kind of eeriness to it. The thing that really got me was a lot of it takes place at night, and I thought it was like so dark. Like I was having trouble seeing like you know, a lot of those night scenes, and it was just like, you know, not great to look at when you kind of like straining your eyes and trying to figure out exactly what's going on. And I mean, I guess it's kind of cool to, you know, because it is, you know, dark, there'd be no lights out there, and that can kind of help with the creepiness factor. But after a while, I'm just like, let's get some lighting in here, please, like, please, anything.
yeah, I felt the same way. It's one of those movies where if you're not watching it in a pitch black room, you're going to struggle with the nighttime scenes.
Yeah,
it felt that way the whole time. I think it just, I don't want to be too negative on it because I do kind of generally likes the idea of it, although it kind of loses me a little bit as it adds more stuff to it later on.
Yeah, and I think one of the problems with this is it was based on a short story, and I think you can kind of tell that it's very short story-ish because there's so much stuff that they had to expand upon, you know, to actually, because if it was just based on the short story, it probably would have been like, you know, 20-30 minutes, which actually could have been like a really cool short. But then
I think
you have to pad it out so much.
Yeah, I think it'd have been better because I honestly I was kind of thinking that even in the opening scenes, once they get into the grass, I was like, this is a fun idea, but I don't see how we get a 100-minute movie out of it. Which, by the way, it felt a little bit too long. It was I could have shaved 10 minutes.
Without, yeah, I think that's probably like my first like big complaint would be, and I think Connor had watched this before, so you mentioned it earlier that it was way too long, and I could definitely see this being even like less than 90 minutes, like, you know, 80 something ish movie probably would have worked a lot better.
Yes. No, I had a great phrase in a podcast actually this past week. The first 90 minutes are free. Anything after that you have to earn.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, that works. I had a tough time with it, and I lost more interest as it was going on. And then once it got to the second half, and it was doing kind of like there was a lot of like running in the long grass, like from someone, and then finding a place, kind of like resetting for a minute, and then running again. And there was a lot of that back and forth, and it has that kind of effect where because everything looks the same, and because it feels like we're just sort of going in circles. And I know that it's kind of trying to emulate how they feel in the movie, but the problem is it's just not that fun to watch or be a part of.
Especially after a while, it starts to feel really repetitive.
Yeah,
like I totally get that. I was pretty much with it for a good portion, and then I did kind of start to feel a little bit of a, you know, fatigue probably in that middle-ish section, and then it kind of, I don't know, got me peaked up again like towards the end. But and I guess might just be an issue with again the running time and stuff. Could have maybe if you shaved it down, you'd lose a little bit of that kind of sameness that you feel throughout it. But I don't know.
I do also think that the ending feels a bit cop-outy to me. You know?
Yeah.
It's a bit cop-outy.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah. The film is directed by Vincenzo Natali, who, if you might recognize that name, because he directed Cube. And Cube is a very notable movie. It's a sci-fi movie where a group of characters wake up and they're in like various cube rooms, and all these rooms, all the sides of the rooms have doors that go to more cubes, and some cubes have traps in them, some don't, and it's this very tense kind of mystery of like, okay, how do we get out and why are we here? And the random characters try to figure it out. What's funny is that this movie, bizarrely, I felt like it was kind of almost not ripping off his own movie, but I definitely got this feeling of like, yeah, they're kind of in this place they can't get out of. No matter what they do, like there's almost like a trick to trying to find your way to certain areas. There's a rule that's introduced early on, and you know, Cube had a lot of that where it's okay, we don't know what rooms are safe to go in. We have to try and get to the edge of the big cube that all these cubes are in. And there's maybe rules to try and figure out which ones have traps, kind of thing. Like, I don't know, there was like this weird mechanical thing where it almost felt like a looser version of Cube in places.
I got that feeling as well. Like, it's funny because on paper they sound like two completely different movies, but when you watch them, you actually do see like, oh, these are kind of similar. And I think especially some of the like later Cube movies, like Cube 2 and stuff, it starts to bring in some angles from that. I thought was interesting.
Yeah. We'll mention what that is when we actually get to the the spoilers, but yeah. I came out of it just kind of feeling deflated. Honestly, like, and this is where you know I'm kind of like out in a movie, is that it took me 3 chunks to watch it. I didn't do it in one sitting. I watched I got through like an hour of it, so I watched a majority of it, or over half at least, in one chunk, and then the rest of it I watched in 2 like small 20-minute segments because I just like, that's as much as I could stomach at one time. I was so out on it, which is a shame. But I guess I'd love to say I'm surprised, but Netflix original movies don't have a great track record.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I definitely had high hopes for this one because I really love everyone involved. Like big fan of the director, big fan of Stephen King and Joe Hill, obviously, and I like the premise. So again, I'll say that I'm more positive than you on it, and I think in general, some of the reactions I've been seeing from people, I seem to be a little bit more in the positive spectrum, but I don't know, I can't really say too much.
I can tell you Connor hated it because he.
Oh yeah.
Because when I said this is what I was watching yesterday, he just made this face. He was like, "Oh," I was like, "Oh, okay." All right, that gives me an idea what to expect.
Yeah.
Oh dear. Can we just point out here though that this year's had Pet Sematary, which was terribad. It had It Chapter 2, which was not much better. And In the Tall Grass, which I think is probably the best of the 3, admittedly, but still like very mediocre, bordering on bad. Doctor Sleep has a lot to make up for if it's going to do it.
Yeah, I'm still holding out hope. It is great that we are kind of experiencing this, King Renaissance, but unfortunately, nothing has been like too great so far. And I mean, I don't know. I guess it's kind of like the nature when these things, like if King is coming back and people are getting excited and he's popular again, you're just gonna see more adaptations, which means you're gonna see more bad ones. But I wish we'd at least see at least a couple of good ones.
Yeah, well, I mean, it was its fault. It Chapter 1 came out, made $700 million, and then everyone was like, "Oh shit, we need to start pumping out Stephen King adaptations."
But I mean, what's funny though is like before that, well, I forget if it was like right before or right after, but there was a couple of good like adaptations throughout the last couple of years that I really liked. Like I was a big fan of Gerald's Game. I really liked 1922. I think
both Netflix movies, funnily enough.
Yeah, and like those, I thought were done pretty well. It's just this year, everything has been kind of less than too exciting. Yeah. But I have been digging the book stuff still. I like the last couple of books he actually put out.
Sure. Gerald's Game I thought was good until the ending. I thought the ending kind of let it down for me, which is honestly for me a problem that I have with Mike Flanagan a lot. I think he's a good director who always whiffs almost always whiffs the ending. I think Hush is the only one that I really think he didn't. And Haunt in the Hill House does whiff the ending, but it kind of gets away with it oddly because it's like a 10-episode show. So it's like, okay, so the finale kind of is a bit weaker, but
I mean, with both of those, I I'm not saying, I wouldn't say I'm a staunch defender of the ending, but they didn't bother me that much.
Sure.
Like, yeah, they could have been better, but it didn't, have much of an impact on the body of work as a whole.
Are you going to defend Absentia, Mike Flanagan's first movie?
Well, it's funny you were talking about that in the other video we did. I don't remember really much about it, but I do remember when it came out, I watched it and did not like it. I really couldn't tell you anything about it, but I think Flanagan is a really interesting guy, which I can't think of too many other creators where I felt like this, but he's someone where I've liked pretty much like everything he's done, like more and more. Because when Absentia came out, I had some people saying like, "Oh, this is like really good. You should check this out." And then I watched it and did not like it. But then everything since then I've watched and been like, okay, I like this a little bit better. Okay, I like this a little bit better. Okay, I like this a little bit better, until to the point now where like I'm totally, a fan of the man. Like anything he does, I'm gonna have a piqued interest in.
You're a Flana fan.
Sure, yeah, that's not a bad name for it. But I mean, that's I don't know. I just think that's interesting because a lot of people that if you really like someone, usually you'll be a big fan of like everything they've done, or like you'll discover them later on, but then go back and watch the old stuff and then be like, oh well, maybe it's not as good, but I can see where he's coming from here. But it's interesting he worked his way up.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. Then we're going to spoilers. It's a weird one to talk about without, because like so much of it kind of changes fairly early on. So full spoilers for In the Tall Grass. Although I will remind you at this juncture that you can go to patreon.com/MailFuzzTV and support us for as little as $1 per month, and for that $1 you get access to an exclusive episode that's a bonus episode that's exclusive to Patreon every month. In fact, because it's October, we're doing 4 this month, all 4 Wishmaster movies, the first of which is already up at the time we're doing this. So plus there's a back catalogue of the previous month's bonuses, so you can go and get all that for $1. Plus there's a lot of stuff. The $5 tier you get to vote, you get early access to a lot of stuff. So go have a look, see if that interests you, and keep all the content coming and help support the show. And so full spoilers for In the Tall Grass, and I kind of like guessed quite quickly for whatever reason. I don't know what gave me this feeling, but I immediately kind of went, there's going to be timey-wiminess in this. Pardon me. There's going to be timey-wiminess in this, and because this brother and sister go into the grass, they're looking for this kid. She runs into Patrick Wilson at this section briefly, and we get to see him, and he's like, "Oh, I'm looking for my son," and that's the young boy we've been hearing, and whatever. But there's kind of like a weird ending to this part where, if we hear her scream, we don't really know what's happening. They get to the point where they are lost separately. And it's just kind of like setting up the basic kind of rules of the movie. And
like when they get lost, it's not like you can get lost very easily. Like if you just kind of get like a little bit apart from each other, it not only time, but like it does weird things with space. Which I kind of like the scene where they're yelling at each other, and then they have to like jump up to try to see where each one is. Mm-hmm. I thought that was like a decent scene.
And then they do it a second time, and they've moved a bigger distance apart. I will say very early, it didn't take long for me to start getting annoyed at these characters shouting each other's names like constantly. Her name's Becky. I heard that a ton. His name's Cal. We heard that a ton. Tobin's the kid,
the little kid.
Yeah. Eventually we get Travis, who's the father of the baby. Because once they have kind of their ending, and it's like 25 minutes in or whatever it is, we cut to Travis coming in to look for them, and he's like showing photos of them up and down the road. He's looking for. And we find out later that this is like 2 months later, and he eventually gets drawn into the field, because he finds like something that belongs to Becky at the side of the field, and he's like, oh, maybe she's in here somehow, and he goes in searching for her, and he actually runs into the kid that they were looking for, but we never really got to see him before. This Tobin, who's from later in the timeline, because he's all dirty already, and he's kind of being weird, and it turns out that he is. He says something like, it's easier to find things when they're dead, which actually sets up one of the rules. It's how a lot of them find each other quite soon is that there's at one point there's a dead dog, and because the dog's dead and the dog won't move, they can actually, if someone's at the dog and they shout out, they will stay in the same place so everyone can kind of get to them. It's okay, fine. I like rules, I like rules. And stuff like this. Unfortunately, it's kind of the only rule, and some of the time-wimey stuff does just feel like it's just making up stuff as it goes along to justify whatever it's going to do next, kind of thing.
Yeah, I think a problem here is it feels like they're trying to add too much stuff. Like this whole time stuff wasn't really in the short story, and actually neither was Travis. Like the short story is just like Cal and Becky. They basically go into this grass, they get separated, and they eventually run into Travis and the father, I think is Ross.
Ross. Is that Travis? So you mean Tobin?
Oh, sorry, Tobin. Yeah, Tobin, and then his father Ross, and then and then eventually, some weird stuff happens, and Ross gets all crazy, and then they have like they keep meeting at this that rock thing, which is just kind of weird. But there's no like time stuff. There's no weird grass, demons. There's no like weird things where you're ending up in like a bowling alley or farmhouse or whatever.
Yeah, it was because it's like tribal people. We've seen these every so often. There's like tribal people, except instead of faces, they have like just like patches of grass for faces. Yeah. Kind of weird, yes.
And obviously you're gonna have to add something because there really isn't much to go on, without. But I don't know, it kind of feels like they maybe try to add too much. Like, you got all the time stuff, plus these runes and weird demon things and symbols, and like the rock's making people going crazy, and then you have the father is now like trying to kill everyone over and over again, and it's like I don't know, it feels like maybe too many things.
Yeah, but the weird thing is it's not just that there's some time travel going on with like because Travis, when he goes in the maze, he finds Becky dead. He finds a deceased version of Becky, but then like the next day he finds like Becky and Cal, and it's like they've just been there for like 5 minutes. And like they end up being together and they've teamed up. And they meet up with Tobin, so it's like a little group for that while, and then eventually they find the father, Ross, played by Patrick Wilson, who takes them to the rock, and then we find out that he's crazy, and he actually kills his wife, who shows up by squishing her head inwards, because that's a fun scene. And that's it's whatever, but like we have this weird time thing where he's actually killing like versions of them over and over again, where like, so it's not like it's just time travel in the sense that like we're jumping around time and they're going through time in various different ways. Like there's actually like multiple timelines and multiple versions of characters like dying over and over, because at one point when he eventually kills Cal, we see like multiple versions of his body dead. He also feeds Becky herself at one point, like some of her flesh from a previous body. He feeds her, and then tries to have sex with her, tries to rape her, like that.
Looks like it.
Yeah, very weird. I think that was the same. That may be two different scenes. The feeding may be a separate scene from the attempted rape, but like those two things happen. Not that Ross seems like he's a bad guy in general. It seems like he's only acting like this because he's touched the magic rock in the middle of the field.
Yeah, there's something, and once you kind of, there's a weird thing with the rock where it kind of seems to draw you in, and then it seems like touching it kind of makes you go crazy, and then also kind of gets him to want to make everyone else touch it. Yeah,
it makes them serve, like whoever touches it then serves the field. Like they're there to help the field capture souls or something. Whatever, I don't know.
So it's a little tough. Like I mean, that's another problem with the movie is maybe I'd have to sit down and really think about and try to analyze it, but I was like a little confused by the end, and not everything always has to be laid out like very clearly. Like I do like when there are mysteries to things, and stuff seems like it has this mythology around it, but I think a lot of the stuff in this, it kind of feels like, well, I don't really know exactly what was going on.
That's the thing. I think it's okay to be a mystery, but I think you kind of said it perfect a little bit ago when you said there's just too much. Because if it was just, no, there's this rock here, let's say it's an alien rock, it's a meteor, landed here at some point recently, and all of the time and space like anomalies were all coming from it, and it was just that, and it was like, okay, that's fine. But they add this thing in where the Rock makes whoever touches it go crazy. They also have this thing where then we get flashes of these like tribal grass people. Like, these things are just a bit too much. And
there's like and there's like symbols and stuff on the rock, and it seemed like there's like, I don't know if like there's a part of it that prophesized like the people coming and like Becky giving birth and stuff. So it's like, a lot of that stuff kind of seems like a step too far.
Yeah, like you could do a thing where, okay, this rock landed and it's causing all these effects they're kind of weird, but then I suppose we have to have a villain. You know, we have to have someone who's an antagonist throughout, because that's the weird thing. Despite when we're talking about all this timey-wimey stuff, it does a lot of it early on, and it does a couple of things near the end where some stuff syncs up. You know, because earlier on in the film, Becky gets a phone call that's all garbled and it's someone screaming, but later on it's her herself phoning herself. We also see, like we're like when she gets attacked by Ross, she drops her purse and all that. And earlier on in the film, she kind of like runs into her own purse, like lying on the ground. There's a lot of stuff like that, kind of that sort of links moments earlier on to the stuff later. And eventually, like both Cal and Becky get killed. Cal first, then Becky. Travis fights him off, but Travis kind of does this thing where he touches the rock because it's the only way to figure out how to get outside. But the thing is, you don't want to leave after that. So he touches it, accepting that he'll never leave, just so he can get Tobin out. And the weird thing is, though, is that Tobin as a character, because that's the other thing, is after Travis has went in, we do more timey-wimey where we see the family go in. So the family go in after Travis, because it's Travis screaming for help that lures Tobin in, even though Tobin's the one who lures in Cal and Becky, who obviously come before Travis. It's, so there's a whole cyclical thing of the characters arriving. But like, so Travis like gets him out, and we do this thing at the end where he just puts him in a certain spot in the field, and it teleports him to the church that's next to the field, and he comes out of the church, and it's the day that Cal and Becky arrive, and Travis says, just whatever you do, make sure they don't come in. So Tobin runs over and convinces them not to go by showing them Becky's necklace, which she's still got. It's like a dirty version of it that's been through the maze, the field. And this makes her feel weird enough that she just wants to go, so they leave. Although they end the character arc where she was actually driving to San Diego to like give her baby to like some parents, some couple that wanted a kid, and
she's young. I think she's like maybe freshman or like junior in college or something.
Yeah, and I mean that's the other thing, the character drama for me, where Travis like didn't want to have the baby, and Cal kind of hates him for it, and like now Travis wants redemption, and he says I made a mistake, like all that stuff, and like him caring about the baby, all kind of fell flat for me. It felt kind of like just they're trying to give the character some sort of actual story, and it just didn't really kind of feel like it worked, especially when there's a weird accusation at one point where Travis accuses Cal of being in love with his sister and wanting to have sex with her, and it's like this one scene thing, and I thought it felt right when he said it, because back in the opening scene when I thought they were a couple, there was a moment where Cal kind of looked at her in a weird way, and I, thinking back about it, I thought, oh yeah, maybe that's what that was. It was like this weird attraction. I mean, don't get me wrong, if that's all that was there, it's not exactly a great setup for it, but at least there was something. Sure. But nothing in the rest of the movie really felt like it was, because the ending doesn't, like the ending when Tobin stops him from going in, he's just like, oh, so we're going to drive back then, and she's like, yeah, I've got my family now, I'm going to keep the baby, and they drive back. It's just like a happy ending. It's not like, it's like, hey, there's still this weird thing where he wants to screw his sister.
Yeah, that's a weird subplot to introduce, especially like since you said that they don't really do much else with it, and it would have been totally fine. Like he could just be an overprotective brother, like if if this guy wasn't going to help raise the baby and stuff, that's enough reason for him to be antagonistic towards him. You don't have to add like this weird sexual angle to it.
Yeah, but because at one point when they find that weird like abandoned building or the bowling alley, whatever it is, the two guys are up in the roof, like Cal lets him fall to what at the time maybe seemed like his death, or at least like an injury where he couldn't come with them, and don't get me wrong, it's not Cal just being evil. Like, he hears because there's constant whispers coming from the field where if you ignore them, you'll be fine. But he kind of listens to them for a second, and it's implied that that's what makes him drop him. Like, it's like, no, that makes him evil for like a second, or he's getting more evil because of the whispers. So maybe Cal at the end's fine. You know, Cal, who never goes in the field, is actually a decent guy, and he's not incestuous. He's just normal.
Yeah.
Whatever. I don't know.
Yes, I mean, like that stuff aside, though, I don't really have actually too much like gripes with the ending. Like, I think the stuff with Tobin, you know, is fine, and you know, him getting them to, you know, not enter the field at all. I think that's like a fine ending to me. But the thing I'm not like too fond of, though, is like the weird like teleportation thing, like how he's all of a sudden just able to kind of, you know, like get him into the church or whatever for whatever reason.
Well, I think they don't really establish much in the way of rules of how any of this like happens or ways to trick it. It's like Travis just knows what to do now that he's touched the rock, and that's it.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, the final shot's okay, where Travis just kind of lies down in the field and the camera pulls up, and eventually the wind blowing the grass just kind of covers him. You can't see him anymore. I do think occasionally there's like CG grass where they do like sort of fancy things with it, like, and that always kind of stuck out to me as being weird. Like, at one point they do this thing where we didn't know who it is at the time. It turns out to be Patrick Wilson, of course, because he's the one like killing people. But the camera goes through a lot of grass, and it ends on like his eye, kind of like peeking through grass, and a lot of that was CG, and it felt a little bit, you know, tacky and whatever. Yeah. So that was something that was happening, you know, throughout.
Yeah. Yeah, it's unfortunate because, some of this stuff aside, I do think there's a core idea and, you know, some setting and visual stuff that I do like, that you could have a pretty decent enough movie. Just, yeah, unfortunately, there's, you know, too many little flaws and stuff that kind of, you know, take it down. Again, it's not the worst thing in the world. Like, I wouldn't say I was, you know, angry that I had to watch or anything. Like, I'm still slightly positive on it. It's just, yeah, it could have been a lot better.
Yeah, I think it lost me because ultimately, well, I like the idea of this not being able to get out and it's playing with space and whatever. I think the setting of the field is just kind of frustrating because visually it doesn't offer anything interesting. And then on top of that, I like, as much as I like the idea of like this force making it hard to like get out and like it feels like they're helpless, I think you have to do it in a very specific way, or it just feels like the script can basically do anything it wants at any time to create whatever moment it wants. It doesn't feel like, you know, like they have any reason to follow their own rules as writers, if that makes sense, right? It feels like
Sure.
they can just like, oh, we're just going to, you know, have them appear here now. Like, there's a building here now because we want them to have a scene in the building, not because it actually jives with anything we've done so far in the movie. Or
yeah, you know, it is kind of weird because on the one hand, I do agree with you that the, you know, repetition of just constantly being surrounded by grass does get a little boring. But at the same time, when, you know, they do just like instantly transport to a building or something, like, I didn't really like that either, because I'm like, well, we're either always going to be in the grass or, you know, or not. Like, I don't like that there were times when all of a sudden it's like, all right, we're abandoning the grass and we're somewhere else now. It's like, all right, because I guess, I don't know, maybe that's like, yeah, kind of like you're saying, like a rule thing where, all right, well, what are the rules? Like, obviously you can't leave the grass, but then there's also like random buildings. Like, is this inside the grass, or is the grass teleporting them there?
it felt, after a while it feels like, okay, there's zero rules to this, so they're just like doing whatever they want to do next, as opposed to it feeling like anything actually, as Tim hits his mic. So I don't know, it makes it really unfulfilling to me to watch. It's kind of you know, like, I think Blair Witch Project handled it fairly well. This idea that they can't get out, right? The idea that, because they just walk in one direction and they find, oh wait, we're back where we were. Shit, how did we walk in a circle? It was just this minor psychological thing. Whereas here is more kind of just constant, like, oh, people are teleporting all over the place. And you know, it makes it kind of rough. It's it's a kind of a boring version of Cube. That's how I would describe it.
And I think maybe one of the reasons I might be a little more positive is because I'm such a huge King fan, and I actually really did like the short story quite a bit, because it did feel very Kingian and like especially like an old school King, like something like you would have read from like Night Shift or Skeleton Crew or something. And in the short story, it doesn't give like, you know, a lot of explanations, so things are still weird, but also it still feels like there are rules like to it. Because they're not constantly like breaking them, and I don't know. So maybe that's why I'm a little more positive on it, because I still kind of see the, you know, Kingisms that are present in there.
I think as it is, it feels like the concept. Well, I do think you could probably get a full movie of it. I think the concept lends itself better to you know, like a 20-minute segment on an anthology movie, or a 25-minute anthology episode of a TV show. You know, whatever one you want to do.
Yeah. Well, I was listening to another podcast earlier who suggested, and I think this would have been like, you know, the right way to do it, but you could have easily had this as like a segment on the new Creep Show, which actually feels like it would have worked really well on there, especially since you have like the King connections and stuff there. So yeah, I think maybe something like that could have worked a lot better, but yeah.
Yeah. Oh, call me cat. All right. Yeah, and you know, I never really cared about the characters. I never, you know, the actors. You know, obviously I like Patrick Wilson, generally speaking, but you know, he's very much overacting in this. You know, once he starts being crazy and starts threatening to kill people, and you know, saying gruesome things and whatnot, it kind of felt a bit over the top, I guess.
I didn't have too much of a problem with him. Like I wouldn't say anyone necessarily stood out, but I didn't think anyone was bad either.
I think maybe it was clashing a little bit with the tone that I think it was going for. I felt that the tone feels a little undefined throughout the film, bizarrely, and I think that's maybe something that kind of made instantly at the start made me feel a little bit off. It felt like this doesn't feel like it has a distinct kind of feeling to it yet.
Sure.
And I don't think it ever really did. Like throughout the whole film, it felt like it just feels sterile, maybe a little bit sterile.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, I don't know. But that's basically the movie. Obviously, sometimes I go through the plot in a bit more in depth, sort of in sequence. It's hard to do with this movie because so much of it is repetitious, and it's so much of like running around the forest, or not the forest, sorry, the field.
The field.
And everything's so similar all the time that I honestly have a hard time like placing the events in order in my head of all the different things that go on.
Yeah, I mean, it is mostly just, you know, enter the field, get lost from each other, run into someone else, get lost again, you know, yell for some people, get lost, run into someone. It's most of the movie.
Yeah. So I guess we'll rate it. I guess we'll rate it in the tall grass. Timmy, what are you giving it?
Yeah. And then I guess I didn't really talk about it too much, but there were some of the other stuff that like I did like. Sure. Again, it was a little inconsistent, but there were times where I really did actually like the visuals. Again, like when it was just instances of like actual real grass, like yeah, there was some bad CG grass in there, but when it was like just real grass and is very quiet, again, you just kind of hear it blowing. There was kind of this quiet, creepy eeriness to it that I did like, and I think, you know, that there were times like that I did appreciate. And then, you know, there's some weird stuff like I do like weird things and unexplained things sometimes. Like there were times where I felt too much in this, but then there's also stuff that I did like. Like I do like the idea of just like this mysterious rock that people are drawn to and goes and makes people go crazy. Like that in of itself, I like. And then again, like we said, it just kind of takes it a little too far and raises too many questions when it would have been nice if it's just a more mysterious thing. But
yeah, because I was getting the odd impression at points actually that it really wanted her baby, but then it didn't. It was weird. It was a weird thing.
Yeah, the whole pregnancy angle seems like there maybe might have been more to that. like maybe that's a reason why it lured them there. There's maybe something about the baby that it wanted, but it doesn't really end up going or doing much with it other than I guess maybe having like some character moments, like mostly at the end, I guess.
Yeah, well, she was going to give up the baby, and then she's kind of forced to give it up in the field. So then she decides not to give it up because that's not what she really wanted anyway. Like there's a little story there, but it's like, not much.
Yeah, and then like one scene where where Patrick Wilson is feeding her. At first, I thought he was feeding her the baby, but I guess it was just an old corpse of herself that he was feeding her.
Yeah, he tries to tell her it's grass. He's like, cows do it all the time. And I'm like, that is clearly meat.
Yeah,
that is clearly flesh you're putting in her body.
But yeah, so again, I think we're pretty negative on it, but I know there's still enough positives to me, and again, maybe I'm showing my King bias here, and my Q bias, because I do like, I apologize, I always forget the director's name, but I do like the director for the most part.
Vincenzo Natali.
Nice, yeah. So I'm still gonna give it a somewhat decent score. I'm gonna give it a 5.5. So I think like, if 5 is kind of the line between like something that, between liking and not liking, I think I'm just over the line of I like it more than I would say that I hate it. But unfortunately, I can't go much higher because there's still like a lot of flaws in it.
Yeah, I'm going to be a bit harsher. I'm going to go with a straight 4. I think it's not the worst thing ever. It's not like in the turds of the years. Like
it's not in the turd grass.
Yeah, it's not in the turd grass. But it is, I'd say, a bad movie. I found it very boring to sit through. I found it very repetitive. Didn't really care about the characters, and I had to watch it in 3 sittings because it was just that dull. So that's where I'm at with it. So 4 out of 10, a 5.5. Netflix, you're killing it. You're killing it.
Yeah.
So
well, luckily we have Eli to look forward to.
Damn it. Jeez, is that one that's coming out in October? Is that one that
it probably is, because they usually release their trailers like close to the release date.
They do. Oh well, but yeah, you can let us know what you thought of In the Tall Grass. I imagine a lot of you have watched it because it was it was a Netflix movie. It was easy to see. So you can let us know what you thought of it in the comments. You can like and subscribe, all the usual things. Get us on the Twitters at @mail_fuzz for channel updates. If you want to support the show, we mentioned Patreon, of course, for financial support over at patreon.com/mailfuzztv. You can also support us by rating the podcast in your podcast app. Apple Podcasts being the most common one. You can give us a 5-star rating, and we will that'll help us out because it'll help Apple share us out more and recommend us more and stuff like that. So make sure you do that, and also look out for other Screams episodes. This is like day 10. This one. So I know.
It's funny, we recorded stuff so much stuff earlier that it feels like the month is almost over, but it really has just begun.
Yeah, I know it's weird, but we're running out of banked episodes, Timmy. So we're about to be in the recording
tall grass.
Tall grass, yes. So yes, so thank you once again for watching or listening. We always
the whole schedule this month is kind of like the tall grass because everything's so out of order. You'll probably see stuff with like I have like shorter hair, then the next day I'll have like longer hair, much longer. Then one episode will be wearing a shirt, then a different shirt, then the same shirt. It'll be crazy.
I mean, to be fair, the shirt thing, you probably like change your shirt often enough anyway that it's not.
Sure.
It's not like they know what shirt you bought that was new. They just they see a different batch of shirts all the time.
Yeah.
Anyway, let us know what you think and all that. But thank you once again for watching or listening. We always appreciate it. Keep watching scary movies, guys, and we will see you next time.